Athletic Football Show.
Welcome to the Athletic Football Show. I'm Robert Mays. Joining me tonight, it's my good friend Nate Tice. Nate, how you doing, buddy?
In a game that features Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Stephon Diggs, even Dalton Kincaid, the leading receiver is Khalil Shakir. That is Thursday night football.
Okay, you say this and you joke, but I do think it is an important point for us to get into.
It absolutely is.
Bills offense tonight. So we'll save that. We'll save the deep scheme discussions for not the first 90 seconds of the show. First impressions of that game. Oh yeah, Josh Allen, really good.
Yeah, good player. I like him.
Josh Allen, real good.
He does good stuff. Great. A lot of no huddle, which was great. Got to see some quarterbacking from Josh Allen, which I think was very, very fun to see and put on display. Got to hear a lot of calls, which was great. Like,
I loved it. Your
center mic was live.
Trying to figure out like a Zodiac cipher, trying to figure out the Delta signal. And why
I got a couple
Delta on Twitter.
Got a couple. Taylor Swift was like a high-low concept. I think it was because like the Chiefs run it, and I think that was the joke. But yeah, the Delta was the mesh read. I like that one. Figured that one out. But yeah, that was fun to watch the whole night. I thought they kind of maybe stumbled into something with this offense and this personnel.
Exactly the phrasing that I would use.
I think they did. And it was really encouraging to see the things they were getting to tonight.
It was so funny. We talked today on our show that you guys can go listen to on the Athletic Football Show, wherever you get your podcasts. And we discussed how offenses were kind of breathing life into their systems and really finding a groove so far this season. And tempo was one of those things that we talked about. And to see the Bills come out and use tempo and no huddle from the beginning of the game today makes perfect sense against the Bucs. The Bucs have all these complicated blitzes. You don't want to be able to let them get into that. It's almost like a team that has a great half-court offense. Like, it's better to just run, never let them set their half-court defense. So that's kind of what it feels like when you play against the Bucs. So yeah, exactly. You don't want Syracuse to get back into that zone. You want to run all day. And that's what the Bills did. So it works against the Bucs specifically. But what they found as a result of that, I think, becomes kind of an omnipresent answer for the teams that they play against. There's just more, it's more dynamic. The offense has life. And then the other side of that is Dawson Knox getting hurt and forcing them to play in 11 personnel and spread things out in that no huddle. This, whether it's on purpose or on accident, is the best version of the Buffalo Bills offense, the one that we saw today.
He's their David Lee, Dawson Knox. He's the one that got hurt to open up for Draymond Green. But it's seeing what they were doing, Khalil Shakir, the last couple of weeks. I was like, okay, I knew they liked him, but he would have some drops at bad moments. It was like, I don't think they could ever fully commit to him. And they're kind of making him the utility guy and using him as a blocker. They used him as a pass protector last week. He got some help from a receiver, I think actually from Gabe Davis. And I think because they're using Dalton Kincaid, the tight end, as a receiver, not blocking, and then using the two other receivers, the non-Stephon Diggs receivers, as to scrape together that tight end role. And I think they were trying to do so much, and at times it was good that they could pivot to it, but now it's like, oh, maybe this helps focus and gives them their death lineup, even when they rotate the running backs based on, James Cook and Latavius Murray based on what they need. But the other four guys, it's like, I think these four were going to get some run together because they can finagle their way because Dalton Kincaid is not a good blocker. They can figure it out. They spread it out. They figured out ways to do it. RPO'd over and over. And that's what they're doing now. No huddle too. It was just really encouraging to see. It felt they were in control tonight. Like, even the times that Josh Allen had to go to chaos mode, I understood why. Like, he had one where the touchdown to Kincaid, it was an extended play. He points hot to Kincaid, but they actually get it covered. It was a nice job by the Bucs. So they just extend the play. It actually got protected pretty well. He didn't have to extend it.
That was another huge thing tonight, is they were so good up front against all of those pressure looks. The offensive line played so well. The touchdown that you're talking about, it's funny how in control he seemed on that play, even while extending. He in real time was manipulating Levante David on that play, knew exactly what he was doing. And that's how it felt for them the entire night on offense. what was worrying to me about that Patriots game last week is that when they were bringing pressures, it goes into chaos mode in a bad way. They didn't have easy answers. They didn't have quick answers like they have at other times this year. There have been a lot of moments, a lot of games this year, Miami specifically, where they were so tuned in against the blitz. He had easy answers immediately the entire game. This was one of those games where that's how it felt. His average time to throw in this game, 2.27 seconds. When they were blitzing from depth, they had an immediate answer for 4 straight quarters. And that version of this offense where it's all spread out, he can see everything and he's kind of got his finger on the controller. They're really scary when they're doing that stuff. We'll see what happens when they need to click into different modes. We'll see how long Knox is out. Quentin Morris was inactive today. There are going to be moments where they need to line up and run the ball, and maybe they need some different personnel with that. But I still feel like the essence of who they are at their best, you got a glimpse of that tonight. Again, maybe on accident, but it was a thrilling discovery.
It's the formations they used, and they kept it kind of simple. They felt like they're using like 3 formations the whole night. The little kind of like, I call it close, which is the tight end's off, but then the receiver's real close to him. But they just love using that kind of stack release from the tight end to receiver, using that and then emptying everything. But those formation tells you could see and how much Allen was in control. But he kept doing the double point, which is if these two come, hey, I'm throwing hot. And that meant he was, that's side adjust or a hot route, and you're creating a hot route, whatever. But it was so good to see Allen getting to that and like being just consistent with it, not sometimes doing and not throwing it and just bailing out. It was like he had answers, even in, like you said, it was controlled chaos. I thought it was just such good quarterbacking from him the whole night. The 3rd and 5 to what should have iced the game, he did a ram out call, which is ram is full slide in their parlance, and then out, the offense line goes out, and it picked up a corner blitz. It was a saw blitz with the corner in the slot. Sorry, I'm using so much jargon right now, but it was pretty cool. But just using a full slide, he picked it up. It was all on him. He has that ability to override the center and make those calls now, which is just showing growth from Allen. And I think that leads to him to having some calm. Maybe that's because he's at home and they let him do it to let him communicate. That's maybe I think an away and home thing that I'm trying to figure out. But when they're at home,
it's a great call, actually. That makes a lot of sense. But whatever they can do, even if it's a little bit more difficult on the road, even if against certain opponents, maybe it's more difficult to get into this exact mode, trying to sprinkle in a little bit more of this just to have him feel engaged, to have him feel like he's in control, because it really just did feel like there was that calm that we look for. We're talking about it for the season. When they're at their worst, the EKG would just be going like this and spiking left and right. We want that heartbeat to be nice and steady. And it felt like they were that tonight against a defense that wants to make you feel the exact opposite of that. And I thought that was really telling. On the other side of the ball, a couple other interesting nuggets. They get out Oliver back. Pressure was much better today. I think they really dominated that game up front for the most part. But the amount of 3 safety looks that they were using on a lot of downs, but specifically on 3rd down, I'm interested to see what that looks like over the course of the year. They did it 7 times against the Patriots, where Taylor Rapp, Micah Hyde, and Jordan Poyer were on the field together, and Jordan Poyer's walked down as a linebacker. I bet tonight it was at least a dozen times, probably more. The numbers aren't updated for that yet. So just little tweaks from them, trying to figure out, all right, we don't have Milano. Trying to, just settle ourselves after what we looked like last week against New England. Is this one way where they can get their best 11 on the field, feel like they're better in just pass defense situations? Just kind of, again, trying to find some answers here as they've dealt with some injuries and kind of get their footing as we get to the second half of the season.
Yeah, I think dime 60Bs is going to be their answer, because they used it on they've been using about 15 to 20% since Milano's gone down. So the last couple of weeks, last 3 weeks. But tonight they use it on 3rd down mostly, and then use it sprinkled in some other snaps, like you're saying, some passing downs. But I think Terrell Bernard's playing well. It kind of stinks that we don't get to see him with Milano and see that an ascending player with what we already know is a good linebacker.
Good bounce back game from him. He had some tough moments against the Patriots after playing well for a good chunk of the season. So it was nice to see him play well tonight.
I think having all those, everybody like on the back end, it just, they also felt like they're communicating well, and maybe just getting this group, just like in their offense. Now they're getting a rhythm together. Okay, this is our back end. Okay, now we got to learn how to communicate, how we can pass things off, and that we can get that amoeba defense, or that kind of hive mind defense, I should say, not amoeba, but hive mind defense that they had before. So, and Teron Johnson is, I mean, poor guy has some like like just gets dunked on in the end zone, but then plays well like the 99 other plays that you watch him. So it's just like, you feel for the guy that's like he just gets caught in these highlights, but it's like, he's
I felt about Christian Benford tonight. He gives up the touchdown to Mike Evans where the ball hits him in the head.
Yeah,
it was actually pretty decent coverage, and he's actually played solid all year. So we'll see what happens with the defense. I also think landing on Dotson and not Williams as that other linebacker maybe is the right answer. He's been better in the limited reps that he's got. They were kind of switching off who was getting that time after Milano got hurt. So it's a work in progress. When you lose guys like Matt Milano, when you've had some injuries along the interior of the defensive line, the Daquan Jones tweet, by the way,
it's perfect
that you retweeted. I forget that you guys probably haven't seen it, but Daquan Jones is defensive tackle for the Bills. He's hurt right now. He just tweeted a picture of the Jumbotron with Josh Allen up there, and all I said was, "That's my friend."
It's so great. It was perfect.
It's fantastic.
It's perfect. It was just like, when they say the happy birthdays at the game or whatever, like it's like, oh, that's my friend. It's like, oh yeah, there's just this stat line where he's just going bonkers. It was perfect. I love that.
So big picture here, as we think about the Bills, the offense is always going to give them a shot, right? The offense is always going to be scary. And even if it's a little uneven at times, if you look at the underlying numbers overall, and I know a lot of it was in the fourth quarter and late in the last couple of games, the offense is really good. They still have one of the best players in the world. They're healthy enough on that side of the ball. I do think the offensive line is much better than it's been in years past and capable of nights like tonight. The game against the Patriots almost feels like the outlier, not the expectation. And I think kind of a normalizing game like the one they just had is really nice to see. So I think you have to feel really good about what their offense is, despite some of the consternation that we heard over the last week. And it's nice to see them again, kind of finding their footing a little bit on defense, which was a big question to me coming out of that Patriots game.
Yeah, it was kind of funny for me to hear like Al Michaels saying like, oh, locally they want Josh Allen to use his legs more. And I was like, they're trying to get growth out of him, guys. Like, you just gotta have a little patience. But you could tell, like in the first half, they're just like, okay, just show him, just go do it. Like, just run a little bit, and and that's good to see though. Like, that is what this offense can always bring, and that's Josh Allen. It's just that he can always go ballistic at any moment. And today it felt like he did at the beginning, as opposed to maybe as the game went along, which was good to see though, as opposed to last game. It felt like, or last week against the Patriots. 4 days ago against the Patriots, it was really that in the first quarter, it felt like he was doing too much. I mean, the first play, it was just a nice play with Peppers and everything. But after that, he had a couple sprays, he had a couple chaotic moments where it just, even when maybe some leakiness in the middle, but it just did feel like he was pulling the parachute a little too quickly.
Yes.
And it felt like he settled in as the game went along, but it felt like this game, again, was that controlled game. And that's why this offense has the highs of anyone, which is saying something in a league that has Patrick Mahomes in it. It's just that we're trying to find sustainability. It's cool to see that they maybe found this little identity tonight, I should say. Hopefully Quentin Morris comes back, because I think he actually could be a really key cog in what they want to do to give him another look.
Isn't that flexibility that we talk about? You still want to be able to pivot, even if this is the best version of you.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens. But the fact that they have these heights and they can still reach them, I think is very encouraging.
The calmness and the no huddle by the whole offense was really encouraging to see, because that means they're coaching it well and they're and communicating it very well. There was no like, what? And so that is really encouraging to see.
What's so funny though is that I remember really reporting about them back a couple of years ago. I was doing a story about Brian Daboll before he left. It was actually his second to last year as the offensive coordinator there, because he didn't get a job the first time around. And it was talking about some of their no huddle stuff back then and just how much control Josh had at the line of scrimmage and the code words that they used and just kind of how deluxe that no huddle look was from them. So they've always had that in their back pocket in this version of the Buffalo Bills. So they can tap back into that seemingly at any point. So seeing them do that is not surprising, but again, it's really nice to watch them operate at that sort of level. On the other side of the ball, on the other sideline, less to be excited about. The defense really does feel like, and maybe these are too stark of terms, if they're not getting home, it's over.
Yeah.
If they can't heat people up, it's over based on the coverages they're playing behind it. And when they're not bringing extra bodies at the quarterback, they just do not have the pass rushing talent to consistently affect the game. Right. So it really does feel like we're watching this defense, even again, I know it's a really good offense that they just played, but it does feel like we're watching them kind of turn back into a pumpkin in real time. The Falcons are 2 plays away from winning that game by 2 touchdowns. Yeah. They just did what they did to them tonight. So the shine is off of Todd Bowles' unit, I think, after what was a pretty solid start to the season.
It's if they get spread out, they just have no chance. It feels like it's like yes, it can give you issues as the game goes along and you have a super powered offense. And then this, it felt almost more like a Spags-ish kind of run. Remember, we would talk about like a full court press deep off or a basketball team that just goes on runs. And that's what this defense always felt like the best part. That's why I was with an Arians team usually, because that's what they could kind of do to teams.
And they played with such tempo on offense. Yes. It always felt like they were just trying to run you off the field.
So it doesn't really feel together with a ball control offense, like that's, I don't know if that, I think a bend but don't break, slow bleed defense would be kind of better for that, just to kind of eke out games and everything. And I almost want to see it with some of these players, like Antoine Winfield's playing like an all-pro. Like he's playing out of his mind right now. But I want to see, Levante David is getting a little older. Devin White's kind of still been a little and just kind of going the wrong way. And he's been in the system for years now. And we haven't seen kind of that next step from him. And then the defensive line, sometimes it feels antiquated. As much as I love the goofiness of this defense, it just at times feels it can be very pickable especially for the elite units and teams that are well coached or kind of can well scheme some stuff. They can beat up some bad quarterbacks and some bad O-lines because that's what it's a junk ball thing. But I think now it's just like you said, it's lost that shine of being like even a very good unit or a good unit.
Yeah, and that's all you can do. Then where are you going? If all you're doing is beating up bad quarterbacks, what are you? So it's
especially with with the talent they have there. It's it just doesn't feel. It feels like it could be a little more. I feel like I want to see kind of more normal.
And the offense is the same way. And I think the offense, after some nice third down luck over the first 2-3 games of the season, has crashed back to earth in a very big way, which you probably would have expected.
One of like a 50% success rate with pressure or something like that. It's like, I don't think that's going to stay, guys.
He's completing like 85% of his passes on third down at one point after the first couple weeks. That's not going to happen. Yeah. And I don't want to make any grand, sweeping proclamations 8 weeks into the season, especially when they're 3-4 and very much still in it in the NFC South. But if you look at this team right now, if you look at the way they've structured their cap, for example, they did everything they could to squeeze every drop out of the roster over the last couple of years. They had like 16 cents in cap space coming into this season. They ate all of the Tom Brady dead money at the same time. Mike Greenberg, who does their cap, is very good at this. So remember that back before the Tom Brady era, they were always a team that kept a clean salary cap, always. And so the Brady stuff and them kind of overextending themselves financially, that was the outlier. So now we're back to a place where if you look at their cap next year, they have about $66 million in cap space. Partially, that's not paying a quarterback. And they've got several guys hitting free agency, Levante David, Mike Evans, whatever. But this team is going to be able to hit a soft reset button this offseason. At a certain point, you're going to have to ask, after you hit that soft reset button with the roster and your timeline and all that kind of stuff, is this the group that you want to oversee that next step of the franchise? And I have to assume that even if there have been some decent moments over the last month or so, we're probably going to start heading in that direction in the back half of the season.
Oh, this always just felt like such a lame duck year.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
It's
why it was hard to care about this team heading into the season. Like, I know that's lazy, but it was just hard to care about them.
As much as we liked a lot of the players and everything, it just felt there was like the incompleteness. We always say incomplete, or I do anyways, because I repeat myself and I'm a hack. But I say like, oh yeah, it feels incomplete. And I made that more like a young team that needs a couple pieces in a year or so. This feels the opposite, like it's descending and it's incomplete because they're shedding weight.
It's run its course.
Yes.
It ran its course with the Brady thing. And I know that they tried to do everything they could to get the most out of this. It's a bad example because it's in the division. But if you're a team that's like the Carolina Panthers but isn't the Carolina Panthers, wouldn't you call about Mike Evans right now? Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And if you were the Bucs, why wouldn't you listen? If you're being honest with yourself about where you are. And I do think that Jason Light's job should be safe. I'm sure it is safe based on the team that he's constructed.
I feel like he hits in the draft more than anyone.
They've done a really good job of assembling talent on this team. Yeah. But I think we've gotten to a point now where if you're being honest with yourself, it's probably time. It's probably time to start thinking about what comes after this. Yeah. And I know it's halfway into the season. I know they're only 3-4, but that's what it feels like even outside of just tonight.
Yeah, it's a listless season. It felt, again, like I said, it's a lame duck year. And that's why it's a team like maybe even just Atlanta or even Washington, where it's like, they had at least a young quarterback that's like, like whatever happens, we can sell this kind of moment. Now you're trying out Baker Mayfield, and Baker Mayfield looks like Baker Mayfield, even if Kirk might be confused by that. And it's, he looks a little jittery, a little different than he probably looked at Oklahoma. But that's what this commentary felt like at times. But it's that, okay, you still don't want to give your chance to your former second round pick and Kyle Trask. And
that's also going to be the next question. The decision they have to make is whether it's worth him getting the reps. I don't think it's going to be much better or different.
No,
at this point, what's the downside?
It's something to sell. And it's like, I don't know, you can go back to Baker, I guess, you know what I mean? It's like easier to go back to that, but it just feels, it feels like, I don't know what they're building towards. It just feels like they're just taking one step at a time and just going, and then we'll deal with it in January. That's what it kind of feels like with this season.
I think that is kind of how it feels.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait that long. If somebody calls and offers you a decent pick for Mike Evans right now,
right,
you should absolutely be listening to that. With a lot of the other kind of big time players on the team,
just trying to poach the NFC South as a Bears fan.
No, I want the NFC South to be good. I want the teams in the NFC South to constantly be competing so they can beat the Panthers down the stretch. But that's kind of how it feels. We'll have a lot of time between now and March to discuss what the next stage of kind of the team building process looks like for the Bucs. But tonight felt like a team that is really scary at its best, reminding us of that, and a team that is clearly on the decline, starting the descent as we get toward Halloween. That's what this felt like. Sometimes it's not any more complicated than that, but some really encouraging signs for the Bills, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, the Bills are still in it. They still have Josh Allen, and it's kind of, I'm very, very interested to see how they keep reconfiguring this team. And because I think they can just keep winning games, but they're one of the most interesting teams in the league, as they should be, because they're a contender anyways. But I think each week is going to be so interesting to see the answers that they try to find.
One of my favorite things about this organization since Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott took over is that it's proactive. They are so proactive in trying to get ahead of their problems and solve their problems when they pop up, whether that's how they build the roster and plugging holes there, or some of the stuff they've tried offensively, whether it's Brian Daboll, whether it's Ken Dorsey. They're always trotting out new stuff. Remember kind of the shift to heavier personnel a couple years ago. And even if it's not always clean and always smooth, you can identify why they're trying to do this stuff. They're trying to get to a certain place, even if there are some bumps in the road. And tonight, it was that same sort of mindset, no bumps in the road, very smooth sailing. So that was very cool to see.
Yes. As the Hail Mary just touched the ground, as it didn't hit any bodies, like literally didn't hit anybody, which is just remarkable anyways. But anyway, that's what's hilarious about the NFL. It's like the Bills felt like they dominated that whole game.
They could have lost. If Chris Godwin turns his head around 1 second earlier, they could have lost. So
NFL, man.
If that had happened, I have the Bills in our wins league for people who don't know.
I know.
I would have just gone for like a long walk around the block. We would not be doing this right now. But I'm glad that we did. Very fun show, very fun podcast that is waiting for you guys in your podcast feed. If you have not listened to our Week 8 preview, talked about some of the best games on the schedule, but also dug into kind of a big picture question about why offenses around the league have struggled through the first 2 months of the season. We've seen kind of 2-decade lows. Success rate, EPA, some red zone numbers. We tried to figure out what some of the root causes of those might be. So encourage you guys to go listen to that and to dig into the rest of our Week 8 preview on the Athletic Football Show, wherever you get your podcasts. For now, that is all we got. We will be right back here on Sunday nights, breaking down all things Week 8. For now, appreciate you guys listening. Enjoy your weekend. We'll talk to you soon.